Hello, everyone, and welcome to our end-of-course review on change management. I'm excited to have you here today. In this session, we'll be exploring key concepts and strategies to effectively manage change within organizations. We'll cover the main principles, challenges, and best practices to help you succeed in guiding change initiatives. Let's get started and make this a valuable and engaging learning experience for all of us. Let's talk about change stories and what they really symbolize. Often, these stories represent a journey of transformation that resonates across different organizations and cultures. At the core, there's usually a narrative arc that starts with a negative state, characterized by deficiency or lack. This is the starting point, where things aren't ideal and there's room for growth. From there, the story moves through a challenging period of struggle and learning. This phase is crucial because it highlights the effort and persistence needed to overcome obstacles. Then, the journey culminates in a positive state, a place marked by virtue and strength. This positive outcome isn't just about success, it's about the improvement and progress achieved through the process. Understanding this transformation helps stakeholders see both the why and the how behind organizational change. Recognizing that change stories follow this common theme allows leaders to craft compelling narratives that inspire action and give meaning to the change initiatives. Remember, virtue and strength are the desired outcomes. They represent the progress and the better future we aim for. So, when we think about these stories, they're really about movement through challenges toward improvement, illustrating a clear transformation journey from deficiency and lack to strength and virtue. This understanding is key to engaging and motivating everyone involved in the change process. Managing change isn't always straightforward. It involves navigating some pretty contradictory forces and inherent paradoxes. One of the most critical challenges we face is balancing planning and emergence. Planning, as you know, involves setting clear intended outcomes and following defined pathways to reach those goals. It provides structure and direction. But on the other hand, emergence refers to those spontaneous, often unexpected developments that happen as change unfolds. These can be unpredictable and even surprising. The key here is that effective managers need to develop the ability to hold both of these realities at the same time. We have to maintain a strategic direction, think of it as our roadmap, while also staying open to adaptive responses. This means being flexible enough to make adjustments when needed, responding to unpredictable evolution, and accommodating spontaneous developments as they arise. It's about balancing structured roadmaps and resource allocation with the reality that change often doesn't go exactly as planned. We set our intended outcomes and milestones, but we also need to be ready for unexpected shifts. So, in managing change, embracing this paradox, where planning and emergence coexist, is essential for success. Effective storytelling in change management relies on three essential temporal elements that help create a clear and compelling narrative arc. These elements form a kind of trinity that links our organizational history with where we are now and where we want to go in the future. By weaving together these three timeframes, past, present, and future, change leaders can help stakeholders understand not just what's happening, but why it's happening and where it's headed. This approach allows us to connect the dots between lessons learned from the past, the current challenges and opportunities we face today, and our aspirational goals and future vision. It's about creating a story that's coherent and meaningful, so everyone can see how their efforts contribute to the bigger picture. When we do this well, we honor the past, acknowledge the present, and inspire commitment toward future possibilities. In essence, this framework makes the change journey more engaging and compelling for everyone involved, because it provides a clear sense of direction and purpose that resonates across all levels of the organization. Change stories do more than just share information. They have the power to inspire and unite people around a common purpose. Instead of simply dictating procedures or listing features, a good story creates emotional engagement and aligns everyone toward the same goal. They help legitimize the change effort by giving it meaning and justification that resonate both intellectually and emotionally. This deep sense of commitment is what really drives successful transformation. Compelling narratives do more than just present facts or celebrate past achievements. They inspire emotional investment. This creates a stronger commitment to the change. When stories justify the effort and build credibility, they help legitimize the entire transformation process. They provide context and purpose that go beyond mere instructions, helping everyone understand the bigger picture. Ultimately, stories serve as powerful tools to inspire action and initiative across the organization. They mobilize people by creating a shared sense of purpose and motivation. So, the role of change stories is really twofold: to legitimize the change effort and to mobilize people into action. When used effectively, they can be the catalyst for meaningful and lasting transformation. Now, let's take a closer look at the nurturer image and what it represents in change management. This approach is fundamentally different from traditional methods that rely on top-down control. Instead, it views transformation as something that evolves through shared experiences among team members and stakeholders. It's less about giving orders and more about facilitating growth. What's really important here is the emphasis on collaboration and continuous adaptation. This means supporting organic growth, allowing change to unfold naturally rather than forcing it. It encourages collective learning and mutual development, which can lead to more sustainable and meaningful change. This approach sharply contrasts with command and control paradigms, which focus on hierarchy and control. Instead, the nurturer perspective underscores the value of shared experiences over hierarchical authority, highlighting that change is a collective journey. The core characteristics of this model include supporting organic growth, prioritizing collaboration, and emphasizing shared learning. It's about nurturing an environment where change happens naturally through collective effort. Ultimately, this approach aligns with a broader theme of fostering a culture of continuous improvement and adaptability. When managers identify with the director image, they tend to believe that those impacted by change need a lot of control and very clear instructions to successfully navigate the process. This perspective supports a structured, top-down approach to planned change, where leadership assumes that resistance can be managed effectively through clear direction, authority, and setting explicit expectations. While this approach can work well in certain situations, it's important to recognize that it might overlook the value of employee input and emergent learning that can arise from more participative strategies. In this view, opposition or resistance is seen as something to be overcome through authoritative intervention and clear guidance. Leadership determines the overall path and then cascades decisions downward through the organization's levels. This is what we call a top-down approach, where the focus is on providing explicit, detailed instructions about what people need to do and how they should behave during the change process. People are expected to follow these instructions, with the belief that clear oversight and authoritative guidance will help move everyone in the right direction. This control assumption, that change recipients require strict oversight, is central to the director view. So, in essence, this perspective emphasizes controlling and instructing those affected by change, assuming that a strong, directive leadership style is the most effective way to manage resistance and ensure successful transformation. Let's take a closer look at the director approach. This perspective is built on the idea that change is actually predictable and controllable. In other words, it views transformation as a straight line, something that can be managed effectively through systematic planning, clear directives, and strong oversight. When plans are well-defined, minimal resistance is expected, and any opposition can typically be handled through enforcement and direct communication. The key here is that this approach aims for certainty, where every outcome can be anticipated and every contingency addressed through detailed preparation. It provides a sense of structure and clarity, which can be very effective in stable environments. However, it's important to recognize that this perspective might underestimate the complexity of organizational change. Change isn't always linear or entirely controllable. It can be emergent and unpredictable. While this approach offers a lot of control, it may also overlook opportunities for adaptation and learning that happen during the process. So, in summary, the director approach emphasizes planning and certainty, aiming to minimize resistance through clear guidance. But it's vital to stay aware of its limitations in more dynamic, complex change scenarios. This image really captures the idea of a reactive stance within organizations. What we're seeing here is an approach that focuses on responding to circumstances rather than actively shaping the future. When organizations adopt this mindset, their primary role becomes protecting themselves from harm and minimizing negative impacts, especially during turbulent or uncertain times. This is what we call risk minimization, where the focus is on avoiding or reducing damage rather than pursuing proactive opportunities. Often, change is viewed as inevitable and predetermined by external forces beyond the organization's control. This is what we refer to as the inevitability mindset, seeing change as something that simply happens to us, rather than something we can influence. Caretakers, in this context, tend to concentrate on managing outcomes that are imposed by external forces, things like market disruptions, regulatory shifts, or economic fluctuations. Their main focus is on reacting to these external pressures rather than trying to shape or influence them. This approach is illustrated by the caretaker image on the slide, highlighting a mindset that's more about managing external outcomes rather than actively leading change. While it's understandable in certain situations, it's important to recognize its limitations, especially if organizations want to thrive rather than just survive. Recognizing and responding to regulatory shifts is crucial for organizations to stay ahead. When we effectively identify these external changes, we can maintain proactive compliance, which means acting before issues arise. This proactive approach allows us to develop strategic advantages rather than just reacting after enforcement actions occur. External drivers, like new regulations, come from outside the organization and create pressure to adapt. These differ from internal factors such as organizational culture, financial performance, or leadership changes, which originate within the company itself. Understanding this distinction helps us see the importance of early recognition. By scanning the environment and engaging stakeholder networks, we can spot regulatory changes early. This early recognition is key because it gives us the time to analyze how these changes might impact our operations, systems, and competitive positioning. Once we identify the shifts, the next step is planning. We develop proactive compliance strategies and create clear roadmaps for implementing necessary organizational changes. Finally, adaptation is about executing these changes effectively, modifying processes, reporting structures, and strategic priorities. So we not only meet new regulatory requirements, but also leverage them as a strategic advantage. In summary, external drivers like government regulation shifts can dramatically reshape how we operate, making it essential to have a structured approach. From early recognition to thorough assessment, planning, and adaptation, to stay compliant and competitive. Hypercompetition describes environments characterized by rapid, intense competition, where traditional competitive advantages erode quickly. Unlike stable markets where organizations can rely on established positions, hypercompetitive contexts demand continuous innovation and adaptation. Recognizing hypercompetitive dynamics underscores the critical need for agile, responsive change management capabilities that enable organizations to evolve alongside or ahead of market pressures. In these environments, organizations must develop dynamic capabilities to adapt quickly to shifting competitive landscapes. Agility becomes a requirement because continuous improvement in price, quality, features, and speed is essential for survival. Innovation demands are high, as organizations face pressure from multiple competitors simultaneously across various dimensions. Markets shift at unprecedented velocity, requiring constant vigilance and quick response capabilities. The rapid movement and intense rivalry in such markets create significant change pressures. Overall, hypercompetition emphasizes that success depends on your ability to be flexible, innovative, and proactive, staying ahead in a constantly evolving landscape. When we see declining profit margins, it's a clear sign that there are underlying issues within the organization that need our attention. These might be operational inefficiencies, strategies that are no longer aligned with the market, outdated business models, or gaps in execution. Recognizing these internal signals early is crucial because it allows us to address the root causes before external crises emerge. It's important to understand that internal drivers originate from within the organization itself. Things like how we operate, our company culture, our capabilities, or how we allocate resources. These internal triggers, like declining profit margins, serve as critical signals that management needs to pursue change initiatives. Unlike external pressures, such as regulatory changes or competitive threats, these internal drivers are a direct reflection of our internal processes and conditions. When profit margins shrink, it's a call to action. It signals that we need to diagnose what's happening internally and take transformative steps to improve performance. By addressing these internal factors proactively, we can not only stabilize performance, but also lay the foundation for sustainable growth and organizational health. Recognizing and acting on internal signals like declining profit margins keeps us ahead of potential crises and ensures we're continuously improving from within. As we look at this slide, it's clear that globalization brings significant pressures that push organizations to become more flexible and to continuously evolve. When companies operate across borders, they face the challenge of adapting to very different markets, each with their own cultural nuances, consumer preferences, and regulatory environments. This means organizations need to develop flexible structures and processes that can easily adjust to these changing conditions. Adaptive capability becomes crucial. Being able to respond quickly and effectively to international regulations and requirements is no longer optional but essential for success. We also see that facing rivals from around the world, or global competition, requires organizations to stay agile and innovative. Competing on an international stage means understanding and navigating diverse cultural norms and expectations. What works in one region might not be effective in another, and cultural intelligence becomes a key leadership trait. Furthermore, globalization opens access to a wide array of consumer segments across different continents, which can be a tremendous opportunity if approached with the right level of flexibility and understanding of local needs. All of these factors underscore that globalization acts as a powerful pressure for organizations to remain adaptable. Developing flexible structures, processes, and culturally aware leadership is not just beneficial, but necessary to stay relevant and competitive in today's interconnected marketplace. Changes in one region can quickly ripple across the globe, so continuous evolution isn't just a strategy. It's a vital part of thriving in this global environment. Now, let's take a closer look at how the technique of gap analysis supports evidence-based decision-making. Essentially, it helps us quantify the distance between where we are now and where we want to be, our aspirational targets. This clarity is crucial because it allows us to prioritize interventions effectively, allocate resources in a strategic manner, and clearly communicate the reasons for change to all stakeholders involved. Think of gap analysis as a bridge between diagnostic assessment and action planning. It ensures that our efforts to change are grounded in real needs, rather than just perceived problems. This approach is fundamental in change management because it provides a systematic way to compare our current performance with our desired future state. By doing so, it highlights specific areas that need improvement, whether that's processes, capabilities, outcomes, or our overall strategic positioning. Making these performance gaps visible and measurable gives us a solid foundation to plan effective change initiatives. In essence, the key points are: first, it helps highlight the differences between where we are and where we want to be. Second, it guides us in prioritizing which areas to focus on. And third, it connects all these insights to our overall goal of continuous improvement and successful change. The six-box model, developed by Marvin Weisbord, offers a comprehensive framework for understanding organizations. It looks at 6 interconnected areas that together determine how effective an organization is and how ready it is for change. The key idea here is that these areas don't operate in isolation. They influence each other, and understanding this interplay helps us diagnose issues more accurately. We start with purposes, which is about clarity of the organization's mission, goals, and strategic direction. Then there's structure, or how work is organized, divided, and coordinated across different units. Next, rewards focus on incentive systems and recognition that motivate people to perform desired behaviors. Helpful mechanisms refer to the coordinating technologies, processes, and systems that enable work to get done smoothly. Relationships cover the quality of interactions among individuals, teams, and departments, which is crucial for collaboration and morale. And finally, leadership, which is about the quality of guidance and direction at all levels. By analyzing these 6 areas, change practitioners can identify systemic issues, those root causes, rather than just addressing surface symptoms. The real strength of this model is that it shows how different elements interact and influence overall performance. This makes it particularly useful for designing comprehensive change strategies, because it helps us see the bigger picture and how to intervene effectively across multiple levels of the organization. Let's take a closer look at the McKinsey 7S framework. This model helps us understand how different elements within an organization are interconnected. It divides these elements into 2 categories: the tangible, hard S elements, strategy, structure, and systems, and the intangible, soft S elements, staff, style, skills, and shared values. Recognizing these hard elements is especially useful for change leaders, because they highlight the structural and strategic aspects that provide clarity and direction. However, it's important to remember that sustainable change isn't just about tweaking one part. All 7 elements need to be aligned and working together. Misalignment among them can actually undermine your efforts, no matter how well each element is designed individually. Now, when we talk about these elements, the hard S are things like strategy, your plans to gain a competitive advantage; structure, the organizational design and hierarchy; and systems, formal processes, procedures, and information flows. The soft S includes staff, your talent management and leadership approach; style, organizational culture and management behaviors; and shared values, those core beliefs that underpin everything you do. Understanding the interplay between these elements helps leaders see where adjustments are needed to achieve real, lasting change. Because at the end of the day, success depends on aligning not just what we do, but also how we think, behave, and believe as an organization. Culture has a profound influence on how employees think, feel, and behave within an organization. It shapes their attitudes, responses to change, and ultimately impacts organizational performance. When we understand the cultural dynamics at play, it becomes easier for change leaders to design initiatives that are culturally sensitive, approaches that work with the existing patterns rather than against them. Ignoring culture during change efforts can lead to resistance, confusion, and even failure, because new practices often clash with deeply ingrained norms and assumptions. Effective change management, therefore, involves both diagnosing the current culture and intentionally guiding its evolution in a way that aligns with strategic goals. Organizational culture itself is made up of shared beliefs, behavioral norms, values, and underlying assumptions, things that influence how people think and act. Culture manifests at multiple levels. On the surface, we see artifacts like visible structures, rituals, and processes. Moving deeper, we find espoused values, those stated goals, strategies, and philosophies that organizations declare. At the deepest level are the basic assumptions, unconscious, taken-for-granted beliefs and perceptions that shape decision-making without us even realizing it. To truly understand an organization's culture, we need to systematically examine all these layers. This helps us uncover what genuinely drives behavior and how change can be effectively aligned with the core cultural elements. Recognizing these different levels ensures that change efforts are not only strategic, but also culturally sustainable. Let's talk about organizational structure, which includes the hierarchy, systems, and processes that shape how work flows and decisions are made. When we talk about structural changes, we're referring to modifications like adjusting reward systems, redesigning jobs, changing reporting relationships, or tweaking coordination mechanisms. These kinds of changes have a direct impact on how efficiently work gets done, how communication flows across teams, how clearly roles are understood, and how accountable people are. Understanding the structural dimension of change is crucial because it highlights that transformation isn't just about shifting mindsets or behaviors. Often, it requires us to redesign the formal systems and processes that support daily operations. These structural interventions act as the scaffolding. They provide the necessary support and reinforcement for the desired changes in how people work. For example, altering how information is shared, changing decision pathways, or reworking coordination mechanisms all influence how effectively teams operate. Reconfiguring roles, responsibilities, and work arrangements also plays a key role. And don't forget about job design. This includes changes to compensation, incentives, recognition, and how performance is managed. Finally, modifications to reporting relationships, spans of control, and layers within the organization. All of these structural elements shape the overall design of systems of reward and reporting. When we think about structural changes, we're essentially reshaping the formal architecture of the organization to better support our transformation goals. Implementing ERP systems requires careful change management because these changes can really shake up how people work. They often disrupt established routines, demand new skills, and can create a lot of uncertainty among staff. Without proper preparation, training, and ongoing support, even the most technically sound ERP solutions might not deliver the benefits we expect. That's why managing change effectively is so critical. It's about giving attention to the human side of technology adoption just as much as the technical configuration. This approach increases the chances of a successful implementation and helps us realize the full value of the system. Now, at its core, an ERP system is about integrating business processes across different functions. It creates unified information flows and standardizes workflows, which is a significant change from how things might have been done before. Implementing an ERP isn't just about installing new software. It's about transforming how work gets done, how information moves through the organization, and how decisions are made. It's important to note that this transformation primarily affects processes and systems. While it may not directly change organizational culture or leadership philosophies, successful implementation still requires us to pay close attention to the human dimensions, getting everyone aligned, trained, and engaged. Key areas to support this change include managing resistance, engaging stakeholders through clear communication, redesigning and optimizing processes, and providing comprehensive training programs. We also need strong cross-functional coordination, effective data management, and reporting systems. Standardizing workflows and procedures, enabling real-time information flow, and ensuring seamless integration across functions are vital for realizing the full benefits of ERP. Remember, implementing an ERP is fundamentally about changing processes and systems. It's a process and systems change that, when managed well, leads to better efficiency, visibility, and decision-making across the organization. Managing transformational change requires exceptional leadership. It's about being able to articulate a compelling vision that inspires others, mobilize commitment across the organization, and maintain momentum even when faced with inevitable challenges and setbacks. The scale and depth of such change can generate a lot of anxiety and resistance, which makes strong change management capabilities absolutely critical to success. Organizations need to be prepared for extended transition periods and should recognize that achieving lasting transformation demands significant resources and sustained attention. Transformational change is not just about small improvements. It impacts the core of who we are as an organization, our identity, our values, and our strategic direction. It represents fundamental shifts rather than incremental ones. This kind of change is radical and often disruptive, forcing us to reimagine our purpose, capabilities, and our position in the market. Unlike developmental or incremental changes, which build on what we already have, transformational change creates a discontinuity with the past. It requires us to think and operate in entirely new ways. This kind of change demands strong, visionary leadership to guide the organization through these profound transitions. Leadership intensity is essential because it creates significant discontinuity with past practices, requiring new capabilities and mindsets. It's inherently disruptive, involving major shifts in our business model, market positioning, or how we approach competition. At its core, transformational change involves a strategic redirection, affecting our fundamental values, our purpose, and even our self-concept at the deepest levels. In essence, transformational change causes deep identity and strategic shifts. It's a deep-rooted transformation that impacts not just what we do, but who we are as an organization, requiring us to lead with clarity, purpose, and resilience. Attempting to change culture too quickly often results in surface-level compliance, but it doesn't lead to real, lasting transformation. Effective cultural change, on the other hand, requires patience, authenticity, and ensuring that the values we espouse align with the actual behaviors of leadership. It's important for leaders to understand that cultural evolution is a long-term journey. It can't simply be mandated through announcements or training programs alone. Among all the elements within an organization, culture is the most resistant to rapid change. That's because culture is deeply embedded in shared meanings, social norms, and unconscious assumptions that naturally evolve very slowly over time. While structural elements like reporting lines, technologies, or formal processes can often be changed quickly through management decisions, changing culture demands sustained effort, consistent role modeling, symbolic actions, and ongoing reinforcement over months or even years. This kind of change requires a persistent effort. Leaders need to model the desired behaviors consistently and be patient, understanding that culture inherently resists change because people tend to seek familiar patterns and meanings. Many cultural assumptions are operating below our conscious awareness, which makes them particularly hard to surface and address directly. Remember, culture is woven into relationships, stories, and the collective memory of the organization. It develops gradually over time and resists rapid alteration. That's why, when we're working on cultural change, we must be prepared for a slow, deliberate process. It's the most challenging element to change quickly, but with sustained effort, clarity, and genuine leadership, real transformation is possible. Creating an effective change vision is all about striking the right balance. It needs to create emotional resonance and spark intellectual conviction about why change is necessary and important. We want it to be compelling, inspiring people to see the bigger picture and feel motivated to act. At the same time, it must articulate specific outcomes and a future state that are concrete and understandable. Clarity is key. People need to grasp exactly what success looks like and what we're aiming for. But we also have to be realistic. The vision should be based on an honest assessment of our capabilities, resources, and constraints. That makes it achievable, something we can realistically work toward. The goal is to motivate people to pursue meaningful goals worth the effort and sacrifice. When we do this right, we find a balance between ambition and practicality, avoiding the trap of either meaningless idealism or uninspiring incrementalism. If the vision is too idealistic without a practical foundation, cynicism can set in. Conversely, if it's only practical and lacks ambition, it might fail to inspire transformational effort. That's why practicality is so important. It keeps the vision grounded, providing feasible pathways and realistic milestones that guide planning and execution. A powerful change vision is all about balancing these dimensions. It should inspire stakeholders to reach beyond current limitations, creating energy and excitement about what's possible, while remaining realistic enough to be achievable. This dual nature, being ambitious yet practical, is what makes an effective change vision. It fuels motivation, guides action, and ultimately drives successful transformation. Without effective vision, change efforts can easily become fragmented, and confusion about the purpose can set in. When that happens, motivation tends to wane, especially as implementation challenges start to emerge. That's where a clear vision becomes so crucial. It provides the why behind the change, helping us stay energized and focused throughout the journey. It also helps people see how their individual efforts connect to larger organizational goals, making the effort feel worthwhile even when difficulties arise. A compelling vision plays several key roles in managing change. First, it unites diverse stakeholders around a shared goal that offers direction and meaning. By clearly articulating a desirable future state, the vision drives motivation and inspires commitment to the tough work of transformation. It also facilitates coordination across different parts of the organization by establishing common reference points for decision-making and setting priorities. In essence, the vision aligns various efforts toward common outcomes, creating a sense of unity. It guides strategic decisions and priorities, enabling us to stay focused on what truly matters. Most importantly, it provides a shared goal that unites everyone involved, fostering a sense of collective purpose. And by clearly articulating a future worth pursuing, the vision fuels motivation to keep moving forward. So, in summary, vision's role is really about motivation and alignment, keeping everyone moving in the same direction, inspired by a clear and compelling picture of the future. A mission provides essential context for our strategic decisions. It helps us evaluate whether proposed changes truly align with our core organizational purpose. Think of it as a touchstone during uncertain or conflicting times, guiding us back to our fundamental commitments. An effective mission statement should be concise, memorable, and meaningful, capturing the essence of what we do without unnecessary detail or jargon that might obscure our purpose. A mission statement defines our organization's fundamental purpose by clearly articulating what we do and who we serve. It anchors our core identity and reason for existence, remaining relatively stable over time, even as our strategies and visions evolve. While our vision describes the aspirational future we aim for, our mission keeps us grounded in our present reality and enduring purpose. This is about understanding the value we create and the difference we make through our work. It addresses who our primary customers, stakeholders, or beneficiaries are, those we serve. It also clarifies what core activities, products, or services we provide. In essence, defining our purpose and audience through a mission statement helps us stay aligned and focused, ensuring that everything we do moves us closer to our core objectives. Let's take a closer look at how the measurement function supports our vision. First, it helps ensure consistent decision-making and transparent communication about our progress. This builds trust and credibility with stakeholders who want to see concrete evidence that our change efforts are actually delivering the results we expect. By measuring against our vision, we generate valuable insights that drive continuous improvement. This process enables us to learn and adapt as we go, making sure we're always aligning with our goals. It also informs our strategic choices and guides how we allocate resources, ensuring that every effort is aligned with our vision. Regular assessments against the vision reveal both gaps and achievements, helping us understand where we stand at any given point. And of course, the vision itself defines what success looks like in clear, concrete terms. By establishing specific benchmarks and desired end states, we create a basis for accountability and course correction when results diverge from our intentions. This measurement function is essential for maintaining alignment and discipline in our change initiatives. It prevents drift or mission creep that can undermine our transformation efforts. Ultimately, an effective vision provides clear criteria for evaluating progress and measuring success throughout the journey. It serves as a consistent reference point, helping leaders and teams determine whether we're moving in the right direction. So, in summary, our vision acts as a performance standard, a benchmark for measuring how well we're achieving our goals and ensuring that our change efforts stay focused and effective. Without a clear strategic focus and engagement mechanisms, a spray-and-pray communication approach can end up wasting resources. It often leaves stakeholders feeling confused, overwhelmed, or disengaged. Effective change communication, on the other hand, requires more thoughtful and targeted strategies. We need to consider what different audiences need to know, when they need to know it, and how best to present that information to maximize understanding and buy-in. Now, the spray and pray strategy involves broadcasting a lot of information across the organization without much thought or discrimination. The hope is that, somehow, the important messages will reach the right people and influence behavior. But, in reality, this approach often falls flat. It creates information overload, dilutes the key messages, and doesn't consider the diverse needs, contexts, or readiness levels of our audiences. This approach is essentially a one-way information dump, no opportunities for dialogue, questions, or feedback. It limits engagement because it doesn't foster two-way communication. It also lacks clear prioritization of key messages and doesn't account for what the audience actually needs or is ready for. Relying on hope that critical messages will somehow reach and be understood by the right people is a risky strategy. It's all about volume over precision, sending out lots of information without strategic targeting or segmentation. Ultimately, this hope-based approach often results in messages that are misunderstood or ignored altogether. So, to be truly effective in change communication, we need to move away from this scattergun method and adopt more strategic, audience-focused approaches that truly resonate and engage our stakeholders. On this slide, we're focusing on the importance of creating forums for dialogue and demonstrating a willingness to listen and adapt based on feedback. When leaders use this strategy, they not only improve engagement, but also surface important information about implementation challenges. This approach helps build trust, which in turn strengthens change readiness and resilience across the organization. The underscore and explore strategy emphasizes two-way communication, balancing clear message delivery with genuine dialogue and collaborative exploration. This allows stakeholders to ask questions, voice concerns, and engage in meaningful discussions that deepen understanding and build commitment. Unlike one-way strategies like tell and sell, this approach recognizes that effective change depends on participative sense-making rather than passive reception of messages. It fosters shared understanding, encourages inquiry and discussion, and invites feedback and input. It creates space for questions, concerns, and collaborative meaning-making through authentic, two-way exchanges. Exploring involves clarifying expectations, providing consistent framing, and highlighting priority information. It emphasizes key messages and critical themes, while also giving clear context and rationale for change initiatives. Underscoring reinforces these messages, ensuring clarity and alignment. Together, underscore and explore form a communication strategy that truly encourages dialogue, engagement, and collective understanding, key ingredients for successful change. Effective communication strategy also ensures that all messages align with and reinforce the core change vision and strategic narrative. This alignment helps stakeholders understand how different pieces fit together and keeps everyone focused on shared goals. Essentially, these principles mirror well-established best practices in change communication theory and significantly boost the chances of a successful transformation. By keeping people informed, engaged, and aligned throughout the journey, we increase the likelihood of achieving our desired outcomes. During transformational change, communication needs to be frequent. As situations evolve, stakeholders must stay informed so they understand what's happening and why. Consistency is key. Delivering the same message across different channels and sources helps prevent confusion and builds trust in leadership. Using multiple communication channels, like town halls, team meetings, email updates, intranet posts, and videos, ensures we reach diverse audiences through their preferred mediums, making the message more effective. All communications should connect back to our vision, strategy, and desired outcomes, creating a coherent narrative that guides everyone forward. When we align messages across channels, it builds credibility and prevents conflicting information from causing doubt or misunderstanding. That's what we mean by a unified messaging approach. Consistency in our messaging is vital. Regular, ongoing communication maintains awareness and prevents information vacuums, which can lead to rumors and anxiety. The more transparent and frequent we are, the more trust we build and the smoother the change process becomes. In summary, effective communication during transformational change involves aligning messages, using diverse methods to reach everyone, maintaining consistency across channels, and communicating frequently. These principles are essential to keep everyone informed, engaged, and aligned, which ultimately increases our chances of success. This approach helps embed the change narrative throughout the organization, ensuring that the message is consistently reinforced. It reduces reliance on any single communication event or medium, which is particularly important because different people prefer different ways of receiving information. By increasing the probability that critical messages reach and influence all stakeholders, we create a more unified and informed organization. Effective redundancy, however, isn't just about repeating the same message over and over. It's about balancing repetition with fresh packaging to keep people interested while building familiarity and understanding over time. Redundancy differs from mere repetition because it involves using varied formats and contexts to present the same core messages. For example, a key change message might appear in a leader's town hall, then in a department email, discussed in team meetings, posted as an intranet article, and even shared informally in conversations. Each of these entry points reinforces the others while offering different perspectives and ways of understanding the message. Message redundancy is about deliberately repeating these core messages across multiple channels and from different sources. This strategic repetition is essential to reinforce understanding and recall, especially because organizational life is noisy and full of distractions. During times of change, when anxiety and uncertainty are high, people's capacity to absorb new information can be reduced. That's why multiple exposures through diverse sources and channels are so critical. Ultimately, the goal is to deepen understanding, improve recall, and ensure consistency. Using varied sources, channels, and multiple exposures helps people process the message in different ways, making it more likely they'll remember and act on it. This is a key part of change communication, building a robust, resilient message that sticks and influences behavior over time. Let's take a closer look at this constructive form of resistance. Unlike silent noncompliance, covert sabotage, or passive-aggressive behaviors, this approach actually opens up opportunities for dialogue and course correction. It's about engaging with resistance in a way that promotes learning and adaptation, rather than viewing all pushback as a problem. When leaders create psychological safety, they encourage people to voice their concerns openly. This transforms what might seem like a barrier into a valuable resource for designing and implementing better change strategies. It's important to recognize that not all resistance is negative. When stakeholders express concerns openly, they often provide critical feedback that highlights legitimate issues. This feedback can help change managers adjust plans, address genuine challenges, and ultimately improve outcomes. Active engagement, even when critical, shows that people care deeply about the organization and want the change to succeed. Visible resistance acts as an early warning signal for potential issues. It helps change managers identify problems before they derail the implementation. When people voice concerns, they demonstrate they care enough about the results to push back rather than disengage or sabotage quietly. This kind of resistance can include specific suggestions for improvement or identifying real challenges, what we call constructive feedback. So, in summary, voiced concerns and active engagement are positive indicators of resistance to change. They show that stakeholders are involved and invested, and that their pushback can actually serve as a valuable tool for refining and strengthening change efforts. Recognizing this kind of resistance allows us to address issues proactively and foster a culture of open communication and continuous improvement. When it comes to education and communication approaches, the key difference from coercive tactics or manipulative methods is their focus on transparency, logic, and voluntary persuasion. This means we aim to share information openly, present rational arguments, and encourage voluntary buy-in from stakeholders. While this approach does require more time and effort, it ultimately leads to more sustainable support because it builds trust and understanding rather than relying on power or pressure. It's crucial that we help stakeholders understand both what the change is and why it's necessary. Building understanding is the first step. By creating opportunities for questions, discussions, and clarifications, we foster an environment where people feel comfortable engaging and exploring the change. Next, we share relevant data, rationale, and the evidence supporting the change. Providing this information helps people see the reasoning behind our decisions and reduces uncertainty. We also need to identify any gaps in knowledge or misconceptions about the change. Recognizing these early allows us to address misunderstandings before they grow into resistance. Finally, assessing understanding is essential. By providing clear explanations, answering questions, and maintaining transparent communication about what drives the change and what outcomes we expect, leaders can help calibrate attitudes and build intellectual buy-in. This approach works especially well early in the change process when confusion or lack of information might be fueling resistance. Addressing resistance with data, logical arguments, and clear explanations helps people understand the rationale, reducing opposition and increasing support. In summary, an information-based approach addresses resistance by educating stakeholders, helping them understand the why and how of change, leading to more committed and informed support over time. Understanding the emotional dimension of resistance is crucial for effective change management. Instead of dismissing resistance as simply irrational or stubborn, empathetic leaders recognize that it often stems from real fears. By providing reassurance, support, and transitional assistance, we can help ease these concerns. Addressing the emotional reality of loss is key because it helps reduce resistance and creates the psychological safety people need to engage with change, even when they feel anxious. Most resistance to change comes from the fear of losing something valuable, whether it's control, status, competence, relationships, or predictability. These fears are emotional responses, not just rational ones, because change inherently disrupts familiar routines and creates uncertainty about what the future holds. People tend to resist threats to what they value most, even if they understand intellectually that the change might be necessary or beneficial. For example, reorganizations can disrupt established networks and working relationships. When people lose those connections, they feel a sense of loss. Similarly, new requirements might make current skills less relevant, leading to a fear of losing competence. Changes can also threaten existing power, influence, or organizational standing, which affects how individuals see their own status within the company. And of course, new routines can also threaten our sense of autonomy, our control over how we work. When routines are disrupted, it can feel like losing control over our work environment. So, at the root of much resistance is this fundamental fear of loss, whether of control, status, competence, relationships, or routine. Recognizing this helps us understand why people resist change and highlights the importance of addressing these emotional fears directly if we want to lead successful change initiatives. Engagement with concerns demonstrates respect and increases support. When we show that we value stakeholders' opinions, we build buy-in and foster a more collaborative environment. Feedback is crucial because it allows us to modify our plans before making costly mistakes, saving time and resources. Enabling adaptation means we stay flexible, adjusting our strategies based on what we learn along the way. Resistance, often seen as a hurdle, actually reveals problems that leaders might not have considered. By surfacing hidden issues, we can address underlying concerns early and prevent bigger issues down the line. This approach promotes adaptive, flexible change processes that evolve based on feedback rather than rigidly sticking to initial plans. Treating resistance as an integral, informative part of change transforms it from something to be overcome into a valuable resource. When we see resistance as an opportunity, we turn it into a tool for better decision-making and smoother implementation. When stakeholders resist, they often have insights about practical difficulties, unintended consequences, or contextual factors that we might overlook. Engaging with resistance allows us to tap into this distributed knowledge across the organization, helping us avoid mistakes and unexpected problems. From a positive political perspective, resistance isn't just an obstacle. It's a signal that our change plans may need adjustment or additional support. This mindset encourages open dialogue, helping us surface hidden concerns, assumptions, or challenges that leaders might have missed. Treating resistance as information is about recognizing its value. It's feedback that can guide us to refine our approach and ensure more successful change. Finally, seeing resistance through this positive political lens makes all the difference. It transforms resistance from a barrier into a vital source of feedback, an essential part of the change process that helps us adapt and succeed. This approach contrasts with short-term, purely technical fixes or authoritarian change methods that may achieve immediate results, but often fail to build sustainable capabilities or address the deeper cultural and interpersonal dynamics within an organization. OD practitioners believe that true organizational transformation requires attention to both technical systems and human systems. They emphasize that lasting change comes from participative processes, which help build commitment, develop capabilities, and foster collective learning across the organization. Organization development, or OD, represents a distinctive approach to change management. It's characterized by its focus on long-term, planned transformation that is rooted in humanistic values and democratic participation. Instead of imposing change from the top down, OD concentrates on enhancing organizational effectiveness and health through collaborative processes that meaningfully engage stakeholders. The goal is to develop overall effectiveness, adaptability, and sustainable performance. We're aiming for a healthier, more resilient organization that can adapt to changing environments. Additionally, OD promotes collaborative decision-making and encourages genuine stakeholder involvement, emphasizing the importance of everyone's voice. It centers on dignity, potential, and the well-being of individuals within the organizational context. At its core, OD is guided by humanistic values, values that respect the dignity and potential of every person. And it emphasizes sustained, planned change rather than quick fixes or short-term interventions. This long-term focus ensures that changes are deeply embedded and resilient over time. In summary, organization development is about fostering meaningful, participative, and sustainable change, building organizations that are not only effective, but also healthy and adaptable for the future. This process of sense-making is not just about rational analysis. It also involves subjective understanding, which is shaped by our past experiences, social context, emotional states, and the information available to us at the time. Because how people make sense of change fundamentally influences their readiness and engagement, change managers need to facilitate this process carefully. That means providing clear narratives, creating opportunities for dialogue, and addressing concerns directly. We want to help people see the change as sensible and beneficial, rather than as something threatening or arbitrary. Effective change leadership involves proactively shaping how people interpret events, rather than assuming they'll automatically understand everything correctly. Sense-making theory emphasizes that people are active participants. They interpret and create meaning from change events, rather than just passively receiving information. Each person's reaction depends heavily on how they make sense of what's happening, the stories they tell themselves and each other about causes, implications, and potential outcomes. Supporting constructive sense-making is crucial because it boosts readiness and engagement. Keep in mind that different groups might interpret the same event very differently. That's why leaders must be intentional in shaping these interpretations through effective communication. Remember, reactions are based on subjective interpretations, not just objective facts. So, as change leaders, we need to adjust our understanding based on social cues and feedback. We should share our interpretations through conversations and stories, search for patterns and meaning, even in ambiguous situations, and create narratives that explain what's happening and why. People tend to interpret events through their existing mental models and experiences, so it's important to be aware of that. Overall, sense-making theory shows us that how people interpret change is active and dynamic. Our role is to help shape that process thoughtfully, ensuring that it leads to more positive engagement and understanding. Now, let's look at how involving stakeholders throughout the entire process, from data collection all the way through evaluation, really helps build ownership and strengthen learning at both the individual and organizational levels. The cyclical nature of action research allows us to continually improve, as each cycle generates new insights that inform the next steps. This iterative process is a core technique in organization development interventions, offering a systematic yet flexible approach to tackling complex change challenges. The action research model itself uses these repeating cycles, gathering data, diagnosing issues, providing feedback, taking action, and evaluating results, to foster participative problem-solving and evidence-based decision-making. What's important here is that this approach keeps interventions grounded in the actual realities of the organization, rather than relying on assumptions or generic best practices. When we assess outcomes and learn from the results, we gain valuable insights that help refine our strategies. The evaluation phase is crucial. It's where we measure success and understand what's working or what needs adjustment. Next, implementing interventions based on our diagnosis ensures that our actions are relevant and targeted. Sharing findings with stakeholders for validation keeps everyone engaged and aligned. Then, through feedback, we analyze and interpret the data to identify key issues. Finally, systematic data gathering helps us understand the situation comprehensively before making decisions. This step-by-step process, from data gathering to evaluation, illustrates how action research promotes continuous learning and improvement, making it an essential part of effective organizational change. Now, let's look at how resolving political or structural conflicts can really help us move forward. When these conflicts are addressed, intergroup development can effectively remove barriers that often hinder change efforts. This creates a stronger relational infrastructure, which is essential for coordinated action and collective learning throughout any transformation journey. Effective intergroup interventions play a key role here. They help the involved parties surface and examine stereotypes, which often distort perceptions and hinder collaboration. They also clarify mutual expectations, making sure everyone is on the same page, and identify common ground that can serve as a foundation for working together more productively. This kind of work is crucial because many change initiatives require cooperation across various departments, levels, or organizational boundaries, where conflict or misunderstandings can often arise. Intergroup development focuses specifically on improving communication and collaboration among these groups, especially when tension or hostility is present. The techniques used include structured interventions such as facilitated workshops, dialogue sessions, and joint problem-solving activities. These are designed to reduce hostility, break down stereotypes, and foster understanding across divides. The ultimate goal here is to achieve improved understanding, reduce hostility, and enhance collaboration. When groups work better together, organizations become more cohesive, which is vital for the success of any change process. So, in summary, by employing these structured activities, we help groups in conflict move toward a more collaborative and understanding relationship, paving the way for smoother and more effective change initiatives. Let's take a closer look at processual thinking and how it contrasts with more traditional models of change. Unlike mechanistic or linear models that assume leaders can plan and execute change step by step from the current state to the future, processual thinking recognizes that change is much more complex and uncertain. Instead of trying to control every aspect, this approach accepts that situations evolve unpredictably, requiring us to be flexible and adaptive. It encourages management styles that focus on continuous learning, sense-making, experimentation, and adjustment. Rather than sticking rigidly to a predetermined plan, Leaders need to be comfortable with ongoing shifts and emergent patterns. This perspective helps us develop realistic expectations and build the adaptive capabilities that are essential in today's fast-changing organizational environments. Now, from a broader view, the processual approach sees change not as a series of discrete events or straight-line progressions, but as a continuous, evolving process. Change unfolds through complex interactions among many factors, things we often can't fully control or predict. Organizations develop over time through accumulated experiences and learning, what we might call an evolutionary process. Because multiple factors interact in unpredictable ways, cause and effect logic often falls short. Outcomes emerge unexpectedly, and new patterns can arise without warning. So, in essence, organizations are constantly evolving. They never truly stop changing or adapting. This ongoing, emergent, and complex view of change highlights the importance of flexibility and resilience in managing today's dynamic environments. Contingency thinking encourages us to base our diagnostic assessments on the specific circumstances we're facing, which then guides us in choosing and designing the most appropriate interventions. This approach supports flexibility and helps us stay aware of the unique aspects of each situation, rather than sticking rigidly to our favorite techniques or following popular management fads. It recognizes that organizational situations are often complex and unique, so making informed decisions means carefully analyzing the specific context before acting. The key idea here is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution for managing change effectively. Instead, the contingency perspective urges us to tailor our change approaches to fit the particular organizational variables we encounter. These variables include factors like organizational culture, industry characteristics, structure, external environment, and leadership capabilities. For example, unique circumstances require interventions that are specifically designed for those conditions. Management capabilities and styles influence which approaches will work best, while external conditions can create both constraints and opportunities we need to consider. The organizational design affects how communication flows and how decisions are made. Sector characteristics influence the dynamics and requirements of change, and organizational values and norms shape what kinds of approaches are appropriate. In short, the contingency perspective reminds us that success depends on matching our interventions to these contextual factors, rather than relying on generic methods. It's about understanding that each situation is different, and effective change management comes from analyzing those differences carefully and adjusting our strategies accordingly. This perspective highlights the importance of managing stakeholder relationships, building supportive coalitions, and employing influence tactics strategically. Change managers operating from political awareness recognize that rational arguments and evidence alone rarely carry the day. They must also attend to who has power, what interests are at stake, and how to build sufficient support to overcome opposition. Political savvy is essential for navigating the human dynamics that ultimately determine whether change initiatives succeed or fail. The political perspective acknowledges that organizational change is fundamentally driven by power struggles and competing interests among various stakeholders. It sees politics as inevitable in organizational life, with change efforts creating opportunities for different groups to advance or protect their interests. Politics can either enable or sabotage these efforts, depending on whether key stakeholders support or oppose the proposed changes. To succeed, change managers need to navigate formal and informal power structures, manage conflicts through dialogue and compromise, and negotiate with key influencers and decision-makers. Building coalitions that support the change initiatives is crucial, as is mapping stakeholder interests and understanding power relationships. Remember, negotiation plays a vital role in determining who wins and who loses in these change outcomes. Influence tactics are powerful tools that shape decisions and resource allocations, and coalitions often form around shared interests or opposition to proposals. Ultimately, power struggles and competing interests are at the heart of the change process, making political awareness an essential skill for any successful change effort. While sometimes criticized for being overly linear, the model remains quite useful for managing incremental, planned transformations. It allows organizations to control the change process more effectively and work systematically through each phase. These phases include unfreezing, changing, and refreezing, which help embed new capabilities in a sustainable way. Kurt Lewin's three-stage change model offers a structured framework for understanding how planned organizational transformation works. It's especially valuable within goal-oriented approaches that focus on deliberate phased progress from the current state to the desired future. The model highlights the importance of not only preparing for change, but also stabilizing it afterward. This ensures that new approaches are fully embedded into the organization's culture, systems, and routines. The goal is to make these new ways of working the norm, so they last beyond initial enthusiasm. Moving into the refreezing stage, organizations work to consolidate changes, ensuring they become normalized and sustainable. During this transition, people learn, experiment, and adjust as they adopt new behaviors and systems. This process involves creating readiness by challenging existing mindsets, reducing complacency, and raising awareness of the need for change. Then, in the change phase, we focus on creating that readiness, unfreezing current behaviors, and preparing for the transition. Finally, in the refreezing stage, we work to stabilize and fully embed these changes into the organization's fabric, ensuring they stick long-term. Understanding initiative decay is crucial for us as change managers because it helps us anticipate a common and predictable pattern that often occurs during change efforts. By recognizing this pattern early, we can take proactive steps to counteract it and keep our initiatives on track. Some effective strategies include celebrating early wins, which helps maintain morale and momentum. Establishing clear milestones provides structure and tangible progress markers, making the journey feel more manageable. It's also vital to keep leadership visibly engaged and sponsoring the initiative. This ongoing support reinforces commitment across the organization. Regularly refreshing communication ensures that the vision and purpose stay top of mind. And finally, we need to make sure that resources remain adequately allocated throughout the entire process, rather than being diverted to other priorities as they come up. Now, initiative decay itself describes a very common phenomenon. After the initial excitement and enthusiasm at the start of a change initiative, we often see momentum begin to fade. As implementation moves forward, stakeholders' engagement tends to decrease, progress can stall, and the energy that initially drove the change starts to diminish. This pattern is especially prevalent in complex or long-term transformations, where maintaining focus over an extended period becomes increasingly challenging. If we don't actively renew engagement, the pace will slow down or even come to a halt because stakeholders lose interest or motivation. Attention drifts, participation decreases, and the original goals of the change initiative become less emphasized. Implementation challenges and competing priorities, along with daily pressures, can drain focus and resources, making it harder to sustain the effort. Finally, after the initial enthusiasm, reality begins to set in. The excitement and high energy across the organization start to fade, and without deliberate reinforcement, momentum diminishes. Recognizing these stages allows us to intervene early and implement strategies that keep the initiative alive and moving towards successful completion. When change becomes a routine part of how we plan, measure, reward, and execute our work, it shifts from being just a special initiative to becoming a core part of our business-as-usual operations. This process of embedding change is crucial because it helps ensure that the gains we achieve through transformation efforts are sustainable over the long term. Without institutionalizing these changes, even successful initiatives can start to fade away as attention shifts elsewhere and organizational memory diminishes. This step is especially vital for transformational or culture change initiatives, which require deep, lasting shifts in collective mindsets and behaviors. To truly embed change, we need to integrate new practices into our formal organizational systems. That means aligning our strategic planning, performance management, reward structures, and operating processes with the desired changes. By doing this systematically, we make sure that our structures and mechanisms support the new behaviors we want to see, preventing a rollback to old habits once initial momentum subsides. For example, we can encode new practices directly into our standard workflows and procedures, ensuring they become second nature. We also need to align incentives like bonuses and recognition programs with the behaviors we want to promote. Building change metrics into our regular performance reviews and dashboards helps track progress and reinforce accountability. Lastly, integrating change objectives into our strategic goals and annual planning cycles ensures that these efforts remain a priority at the highest levels. Overall, embedding change into our organization systems creates a strong foundation for sustained success, making sure that the progress we make today endures well into the future. Effective institutionalization requires a combination of strategies that reinforce change consistently over time. Leaders need to deliberately embed new practices into the organization's systems and processes. This means not just introducing change, but actively reinforcing new expectations through both formal mechanisms, like policies and procedures, and informal modeling, such as everyday interactions. This sustained focus is crucial because it helps prevent the organization from slipping back into old habits. When change becomes the new normal, it's not seen as a temporary project, but as part of the organizational culture. The goal is to make change self-sustaining by embedding it into the system, so it doesn't rely on ongoing efforts or constant reminders from leadership. Leaders at all levels should consistently demonstrate and promote these new ways of working. Modeling desired behaviors is key, showing through actions what is expected. It's important not to dismantle change leadership structures too early. We need to let new practices fully take root before winding down those initial supports. Sustaining change teams helps maintain momentum and focus. We should also keep messaging about new expectations alive even after the initial rollout, so it remains top of mind. Communication must be consistent across the organization, reinforcing the change at every level. Including change objectives in performance reviews and development conversations ensures accountability and keeps the focus on desired behaviors. Adjusting compensation and bonuses to reward behaviors and outcomes aligned with the change helps reinforce the new practices through incentives. All these strategies work together to embed change deeply into the organization's fabric, making it resilient and self-sustaining over time. Strategic celebrations are a powerful way to create positive energy within the organization. They help counteract the natural tendency toward fatigue and disengagement that can happen over time during a change initiative. By taking the time to celebrate, we also open opportunities to communicate our progress more broadly, acknowledge the contributions of our team members, and build confidence that our efforts are leading us toward success. It's important to find the right balance when celebrating. We want to genuinely recognize achievements, but also stay focused on the remaining work. Celebrating too early or prematurely declaring victory can undermine our momentum. Instead, effective celebrations mark meaningful progress while keeping us motivated to continue. Celebrating early wins is especially crucial in preventing what we call initiative decay, where enthusiasm wanes and momentum stalls. Recognizing progress and achievements boosts morale and provides concrete evidence that our efforts are paying off. It reinforces stakeholder commitment, helping everyone stay engaged even when challenges arise. Some key signs that we've made progress include evidence of new behaviors becoming routine, positive feedback from stakeholders, successful pilot implementations, early indicators of improved performance, contributions from teams or individuals, and milestone or goal completions. These are all tangible reasons to celebrate. So, what should we celebrate? Celebrations make the journey more rewarding rather than just difficult. They encourage ongoing support and engagement, create positive energy within the organization, and reinforce our collective commitment. Plus, they provide proof that change is actually working, which boosts morale and keeps positive momentum going. In summary, celebrating early wins isn't just about feeling good momentarily. It's a strategic tool to prevent initiative decay, sustain enthusiasm, and ensure we stay on course toward our transformation goals. By recognizing progress along the way, we keep the energy high and the efforts focused. High EI, or emotional intelligence, really enhances how effectively we communicate, enabling us to lead with empathy. It helps build trust and fosters collaboration, especially when things get stressful. All of these are crucial skills for guiding organizations through change. Leaders with strong emotional intelligence can read situations more accurately, which means they can adapt their approach depending on who they're dealing with. They also manage their own stress and reactions better, creating a sense of psychological safety for others. This allows team members to engage constructively, even when there are natural fears and concerns about organizational transformation. Emotional intelligence involves understanding and managing your own emotions, while also recognizing and responding appropriately to others' emotions. This becomes especially critical during change management, where resistance, uncertainty, and anxiety are common. It's about navigating complex interpersonal dynamics effectively. When we talk about responding appropriately to emotional situations, it's about building genuine connections. That's where relationship management comes in, recognizing emotions in others and understanding group dynamics. Social awareness helps us stay attuned to the emotional climate around us. And then there's self-management, regulating your emotions, especially under pressure and uncertainty. This means understanding your emotional triggers and patterns so you can stay composed. Finally, self-awareness is the foundation, knowing your own emotional states and how they influence your behavior. All of these aspects of emotional intelligence are vital in change management because they help leaders guide their teams through transformation with empathy, clarity, and resilience. As we look at the nurturer image, it's clear that change managers adopting this approach focus more on facilitation and empathetic listening rather than giving direct orders or control. The idea is to foster collective learning and emergence through participative processes, deliberately avoiding coercion. Instead, we encourage meaningful engagement from all stakeholders, making sure everyone's voice is heard and valued. A key part of this is deeply understanding emotional and social dynamics, recognizing how these factors influence how individuals and groups respond to change. Emotional awareness is crucial because it helps us navigate the human side of change effectively. By fostering participative processes, we promote shared ownership of the change outcomes, which builds commitment and trust. Building collaboration is also essential. This means understanding stakeholder perspectives, concerns, and needs through attentive, non-judgmental presence. When we listen empathetically, we create environments where collective learning and emergence can truly flourish. It's about guiding processes skillfully and supporting groups in a way that encourages growth and adaptation, rather than imposing top-down mandates. So, in essence, these facilitation skills, empathy, active listening, collaboration, are critical for embodying the nurturer role. They help us cultivate an atmosphere of shared experience and collective capability building, which ultimately leads to more sustainable and genuine organizational change. Let's talk about why relationships are so vital in change management. Building genuine, authentic relationships actually complements our technical project management skills. It helps us address the human side of change, which is often the deciding factor in whether initiatives succeed or not. When leaders invest in forming real connections, they create social capital, an invaluable resource during tough transformation periods. Relationships give us influence and open doors to informal power networks, which are often more effective than formal authority. They help us navigate organizational politics smoothly and establish trust, which then fosters open, constructive dialogue about concerns. Instead of defensiveness, people feel safe to share their true thoughts. Connections also facilitate knowledge sharing and coordinated action across different parts of the organization. This is crucial when implementing complex changes that span boundaries. When trust is in place, Resistance to change becomes more manageable because issues are addressed through honest conversations, not confrontation. Strong relationships create psychological safety, an environment where people feel comfortable being honest and vulnerable. This safety encourages open communication, which is essential for collaboration and innovation. Ultimately, these relationships are the foundation for successful change. They enable trust and cooperation that go beyond formal authority or just rational arguments. When people trust their leaders and feel connected to their colleagues, they're more willing to embrace uncertainty, take risks, and work through the challenges that come with transformation. So, in the bigger picture, investing in relationships isn't just nice to have, it's a strategic advantage. It helps us manage resistance, foster collaboration, and build the social capital needed to see change initiatives through to success. Now, let's talk about the crucial role of the SenseMaker change manager. Essentially, SenseMakers help stakeholders move from confusion and resistance toward clarity and acceptance. They achieve this by providing clear narratives, answering questions, addressing concerns, and supporting constructive reframing. This role is vital because it recognizes that people need more than just information about what is changing. They also need to understand why it matters and how it connects to their work and values. Effective sense-making reduces the cognitive and emotional dissonance that can paralyze organizations during transformation. When people feel informed and understood, they can engage more productively, even amid uncertainty. The sense-maker helps employees interpret and understand the meaning of change in ways that reduce anxiety, build commitment, and enable positive engagement. During complex or ambiguous situations, change managers acting as sense-makers facilitate collective meaning-making. They guide how people frame and understand what's happening, helping make sense of the situation. This process of meaning-making fosters adoption by connecting change to values and aspirations, which creates a sense of purpose. The core functions can be summarized as guiding understanding, reducing anxiety, supporting positive perspectives, and making complex situations clearer. First, they interpret events so employees grasp what change means and why it's happening. Then, they provide clarity and direction to diminish confusion and emotional distress. Next, they foster reframing, helping people see opportunities rather than only threats or losses. This positive perspective shift is key to building resilience. Overall, the sense-maker role is about helping people see the bigger picture and feel confident about the path forward, ultimately supporting a smoother transition and greater engagement throughout the organization. Let's talk about how delivering results over time builds our reputational capital. When we consistently demonstrate reliability and honesty, we lay a strong foundation for influence. These qualities, trustworthiness, are essential because people need to believe in us before they follow our lead. Now, demonstrating capability is equally important. When our actions show competence, it creates confidence in our leadership. People want to know that we can deliver on our promises and handle challenges effectively. But it's not just about what we say, it's about aligning our words with our actions. When there's a consistent match, we build trust. That integrity, being honest and authentic, further enhances our credibility, which is vital for building goodwill. This goodwill enables us to form effective coalitions, negotiate successfully, and manage stakeholders more smoothly. When people trust our motives and believe in our capabilities, they're more willing to support initiatives, overlook minor missteps, and give us the benefit of the doubt, especially during tough times. This kind of personal credibility becomes critical in navigating complex political landscapes, where formal authority alone often isn't enough. In fact, strong personal credibility is probably the most essential trait for successfully maneuvering organizational politics during change. It's something we develop through consistent demonstrations of integrity, trustworthiness, competence, and reliability over time. Leaders with high credibility can influence others without relying solely on their formal authority or coercion. So remember, building and maintaining this credibility is not just a nice-to-have. It's a vital asset that enables us to lead effectively through any change. Change management is a demanding process that requires sustained effort over months or even years. During this time, we often face resistance, confusion, and fatigue, which can challenge even the most committed teams. Leaders who lack resilience may burn out, become defensive, or give up too soon when faced with these predictable hurdles. That's why developing and maintaining resilience is so crucial. Resilience isn't just about stubborn persistence. It's about flexibility combined with determination. It means being able to bend without breaking, learning from difficulties, and staying optimistic and energized throughout the long journey of change. This capacity helps us guide our organizations successfully through complex transitions that test everyone's endurance under uncertain conditions. It's important to distinguish true resilience from rigidity. Rigid persistence ignores problems or refuses to adapt, which can be detrimental. True resilience involves adjusting strategies when needed, maintaining focus, and being open to learning, especially when faced with setbacks or unexpected obstacles. Resilient change managers can withstand ambiguity, challenges, setbacks, and stress. These are all inherent in leading change. They stay effective under pressure, recover quickly from disappointments, and adapt their approach without losing sight of the ultimate goals. Think about the stress levels during a major change. Sustained resilience is essential to keep ourselves and our teams focused and healthy. Major transformations often take 3 to 5 years, and resilience helps us stay the course despite the inevitable ups and downs. When plans don't go as expected, resilient leaders can recover and adapt. For example, about 75% of change initiatives encounter unexpected obstacles, and resilience is what enables us to keep moving forward in those circumstances. So, in summary, resilience isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a critical capacity for change managers. It allows us to manage stress, stay effective over the long haul, bounce back from setbacks, and keep our eyes on the end goal, even in the face of uncertainty and adversity.